So it's just, do you see analytical Leandra's in the audience? She's in my brain, and this is what happens. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Leandra the TBR0, and my Heartless reading challenge is continuing. I ended up deciding to do a vlog where I challenged myself to finish 3 romances. And unfortunately, spoiler alert, it didn't work out. We had some highs, we had some lows, we had a couple DNFs. And so, because I ended up failing my own challenge, trying to finish 3 romances in one vlog, we're here again. Unfortunately, I haven't really figured out what the theme is going to be as I'm recording this because the first vlog hasn't even come out yet. So I'm waiting to see if I get any suggestions, recommendations from subscribers or people who just stumble upon the video. So yeah, for now, I'm gonna continue on the train that I already planned to do, which was reading Daydream by Hannah Grace. This is such a crazy choice for me. If you had watched my first video, then you already know why I'm reading it, but really this was one of the best books read by Brittany Loves Reading, one of my really close friends here on booktube, and I trust her with all my heart. And also, she did not recommend this book to me. I have to make that clear. None of the booktubers recommended me books in that first video. I simply just snooped on their best books of 2024 videos and chose the titles that were most interesting to me and the ones I had access for. So yeah, just to put that out there. As I said, my entire goal for this vlog is to try to get more acquainted with the romance genre, find the types of romances I like, because I love the idea of palate cleansers. I love the idea of people being comforted and just enjoying romances. And I love consuming the content on booktube about romances. I feel like I haven't found my niche. So yeah, let's cross our fingers and hope this time I can finish 3 romances in this vlog. And if not, there might have to be a part 3. It has been a few weeks since I updated this vlog, and that's because I haven't picked up Daydream since I ended up getting sick with COVID. It wasn't a good time. I also ended up being really distracted with the end of Get a Clue, the start of Ramathon. In fact, it's thanks to Ramathon that I even picked up Daydream once again. Also, the Libby borrow is due back in a few days, so that is a little bit stressful. It's gonna be fine. I'm officially 31% into the audiobook. I've pretty much just set the ebook aside. I was immersion reading it, and then I realized it just wasn't necessary. The audiobook is well done enough, and it's a very straightforward romance that I just don't need to immersion read it. So I've been cleaning, I've been tidying up, which has been lovely, and just getting stuff done in my apartment as I've been listening. The narrative focuses on the love interests that are Hallie and Henry. They're both attending the same university. Hallie has her own stresses in life. She's a people pleaser. She's used to acting as a third parent for her younger sibling, and she also dreams of being a romance author. And she has discovered that there is this competition that she would like to enter, and potentially I believe it's like a retreat, a writer's retreat or a writer's program that she would then get to attend if she ends up winning. So those are all of the things that are going on in her head while she's juggling work at a bookstore, the book clubs that she's hosting as well. Meanwhile, we have Henry, and he is the new captain of the hockey team, so that's a lot of pressure on his shoulders. He's also not doing very well in his academics. He struggles because he's neurodivergent. He is not diagnosed with anything, and to my understanding, the author does it on purpose, and we aren't really meant to look into it as far as wanting a solid answer, because that's not really where his story is going. The two of them end up connecting, and they get along really quickly. They become fast friends. Hallie ends up confiding in Henry that she is struggling to feel confident in writing the romance story that she wants to write because she just doesn't have much experience. She broke up with her boyfriend, who happens to also be on a hockey team, so you know, they're all in the same world that is hockey lifestyle, but she really didn't do anything with him because she never felt comfortable being romantically intimate and physical with him, which honestly, that's the right path to take if you're in that position. And then Henry is struggling academically, as I mentioned, so the two of them kind of decide to help each other out. It's not designed as a deal. They're just doing it to be kind because they're friends. She offers him help. He starts to feel badly that he's taking advantage of her, so he offers help to her as well. His help is a little bit weirder because he is offering to take her on dates and give her the experience that she never had with her previous boyfriend. And I will say that this is an overdone trope. It's a really common trope. I was about to say that I thought it was pretty juvenile because I've seen a lot of YA books do this. However, now that I think about it, a lot of main characters who are in journalism or authors, in order to write what they want to write about, they have to gain life experience first. And we've seen that a million times. I mean, Hollywood loves this type of storyline. I'll admit the only movie I can think about is How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, but you guys know what I'm saying. I can already see lines blurring, and we're gonna see how it goes. There was a weird conversation where Hallie said, hey, Henry, if you ever end up having feelings for another person, feel free to stop what we're doing so that you can focus on this other person and they can feel comfortable dating you as well, not being worried about Hallie. And he said, if that person is uncomfortable with his agreement with Hallie, then they don't need to be in his life. And I was like, that's a little weird. I'm not gonna lie, especially because literally you're giving Hallie the boyfriend treatment without being her boyfriend. And I know it's for research, but I was like, that's a really weird take, Henry, but I know what you mean. At this point, as you probably can tell, I plan on continuing. So it's not a DNF yet. I mean, I can't promise anything because there's a lot of the book to go, but for now, I'm enjoying my time with Hallie and Henry. I don't find myself as bothered by the college experience as I thought I might. Yes, they sound young at times, they sound a bit YA, but I can be okay with it, especially because it's slow burn and it's a very sweet romance. It would be weird if they were super spicy and the dialogue was giving me YA energy, but I'm not getting that. So yeah, I'm excited, and I'll give you guys another update as I make it a little bit further into this novel. The time has come for me to update you once again on my progress for Daydream. The question is, did I DNF it, or am I ever further and even more invested in the romance between Hallie and Henry, our protagonists? Well, I'm DNFing it. I know that none of you are going to be surprised, but you have to admit there was a moment, right? There had to have been a moment where we all were thinking, is Leandra going to finish this book? Because I was invested. I did love the sweet romance between the two characters. I loved the open communication, the slow burn. There were elements that were really intriguing to me, and I was excited. I thought I was going to finish this. I'm about 41% in, so it wasn't that much further before I updated you the last time. It's just, I don't know. There's definitely a possibility that I ended up waiting too long to pick this book back up after being sick. It was maybe 10 to 14 days since I had originally started this book, and I was eating it up. And then now I'm afraid that analytical Leandra has shown her ugly head, because I just started nitpicking certain dialogue discussions between Hallie and Henry that I wish had gone a bit differently and felt a bit after school special. To be honest, it was Henry who started to really kind of annoy me. We all know this. I typically don't like to have both POVs from our love interests, just because it makes me shake my head thinking, what are we doing here? So there is that. But with Henry, I felt as though Hannah Grace is course correcting, overcorrecting what I typically see and dislike about the men we see in these romances when we are dealing with a heterosexual relationship. So the men, oftentimes, it's baffling because they're written by women. So I always am kind of surprised when this happens, but so often we're in the man's head and he is solely, or at least 99% of the time, thinking about his physical attraction for the other love interest, talking about her body, his arousals, and how it's been really hard for him to basically keep it in his pants. And I'm just like, why are we like sexually objectifying the women in our own romance books? This is crazy. And I will say that Henry doesn't do that. So that was really lovely to see. With that said, I don't know if this is just to up the fact that he has two moms at home and they were the ones who raised him, but he's almost mansplaining at times to Hallie how feminism works and how she should feel like a strong, powerful woman and, you know, fight back against the patriarchy. And I'm just thinking, yeah, we know. There's a moment where Hallie says that she's embarrassed that he's near her legs and she didn't shave. And honestly, body hair is a preference. You know, obviously it is dictated by the patriarchy why women started shaving in the first place, but still some people just prefer to have less hair on their bodies as a comfort level. But anyways, he ends up mansplaining to her that she shouldn't care about having hair on her bodies and everything else. And Hallie's like, wow, he's right. I need to do better because I want to make sure that my sister grows up with that same perspective. And it was a really weird moment where I was thinking, should we be giving Henry a gold star for something that just normal people should agree with? Meanwhile, he does undermine her at times. I was kind of disappointed with this one discussion that they had, and we're gonna back up a little bit. They're at this party, they're having a great time. When they go into the bathroom, they witness a scene that's really startling, and it does directly relate to one of their friends. Their friend should know that this happened so that he can progress and move forward to address the issue at hand. I'm trying to be vague because I think it's a bit spoilery. It seems like it's something that happened either in Icebreaker and Wildfire, and now it's been extended into this book. And so this is the issue with starting a romance series with book 3. But anyways, with Hallie, she tells Henry, you need to tell your friend this. This is important. He needs to know as soon as possible so he can address this because this just isn't okay. Meanwhile, Henry accuses her of being too drunk to make a rational decision, saying that she's overstepping, that she doesn't know what she's talking about, and he's gonna just take her home. And of course, Hallie feels horrible about this. She's embarrassed. She does feel that she's overstepped because he told her so. And she's also really self-conscious at the moment because she's never really been a part of a solid friend group before. So she has a lot riding on this. And so the next day, when she confides in Henry and basically apologizes to him when she shouldn't be apologizing to him, he tells her that. He says, no, we just disagreed on how to handle this. You didn't actually overstep. So, okay, you're admitting that you're the one, Henry, who spoke out of line and disrespected Hallie. And now you're saying that you had differing opinions when in reality, it's not that. You agreed with her. You just were overwhelmed in the moment and you weren't sure and you were uncomfortable with how to proceed with this. So it's just, do you see analytical Leandra's in the audience? She's in my brain and this is what happens. You know what, Brittany? We did give it the old college try. Genuinely, I was given a college romance and we tried it. And I know, Brittany, that you weren't, imagining that I was going to absolutely love this story, but I do think that this would have been a book if it was right time, right place, and that right time was a couple weeks ago. So there is that. But now it's time for me to move on to another romance. And again, we've started off the vlog with a DNF. It's not great. But you know what? It's okay. We're just going to move forward. And to do that, I have to look to the comments in the last vlog for me trying romances and not DNFing them. So many of you ended up commenting really thoughtful responses. Either you felt seen because you're also not someone who reads romance very often, or you're a romance veteran and you were laughing at my trials or giving me recommendations. And that's what I'm trying to get to actually. In this vlog, my plan is to try my best to highlight as many comments that you all gave me as possible, and basically thank you for taking the time to recommend books to me. Not only did many of you explain why you thought it could be a book that I would enjoy, but a few of you gave me some buzzwords describing, what tropes are in these titles or what type of subgenre within the romance umbrella this book would fit under, so that I could be the judge myself on if it would be a book for me. And so the first person I'm going to be highlighting is actually Evie. Let's go, Evie. You have always given me such thorough comments, and I really do appreciate you so much, especially because in this comment specifically, there are 7 romances I could choose from, and I was just floored. What I'm going to go with, Evie, is actually A Delicate Deception by Cat Sebastian. The way you described it is that it's queer historical with found family. That sounds lovely. I did look, and there are 2 POVs. It's just something that the romance genre has, and I know that it's a thing that I don't like. So just so everyone knows, it's not like I'm gonna throw away all of these titles just because there's 2 POVs, and you could see that in my first vlog if you missed it. So yeah, I feel as though it could work for me. I do love a queer story. I do love queer romance. The fact that it's historical sounds lovely because I do like historical mystery. I like historical fantasy. And if we're remembering, in the last vlog, historical or historical inspired works were the titles that I really vibed with the most. So I'm gonna cross my fingers. Hopefully this works out for me, and I'll give you all an update as soon as I can. So I started A Delicate Deception by Cat Sebastian. I realized that this is the 3rd book in a Regency series. I think it's called Regency Imposters. So that's really interesting because it's the 2nd book I'm trying for this vlog. It's also the second book that is the third in a series in which I haven't actually started that series. Like, I haven't read anything prior to this, so I'm just jumping into this world. And the question is, as always, as I am providing you with an update, am I DNFing this book? No, I'm not. I'm actually having a really great time. I know that I've said this before, so I'm not really instilling too much trust in you all, but I am really loving this. Honestly, loud cars, am I right? It's set in Regency, England, and I really do enjoy that setting. I love our two love interests. They are so adorable and odd, and I love their meet cute. It's so awkward, and whenever they interact with each other, I can't wait. I get giddy, and I think that's how you're supposed to feel with a romance, right? Am I finally getting what the best part of romance is? Amelia and Sydney are coming from places where neither one of them feels very accepted, and they're kind of struggling in different ways. Amelia is a bit of a social pariah. She runs to the countryside because she feels that Regency society just doesn't accept her, and honestly, I can understand why. She is curious, she's blunt, and she's willing to address elements in a conversation that others would avoid, and so I really find her to be a breath of fresh air. Meanwhile, Sydney, he's dealing with a lot of grief and loneliness in a different way. His ex-boyfriend slash friend has really taken him through the ringer, and he's also still dealing with the grief, the loss of his brother. And so the two of them meeting together in this very awkward encounter. They're both going for a walk, and Amelia is so infuriated because he's a stranger, and every time they cross paths, he tips his hat to her, and she's like, "That is not social etiquette. How dare you tip your hat to me when I don't know who you are?" And so that ends up beginning this type of verbal altercation where he's afraid that the dog that follows her, a sheep herding dog that is just kind of obsessed with her and she doesn't really know what to do with it, he thinks that the dog's gonna eat him, and it's just, they're very, very sweet. And I think that we're gonna be dealing with some serious issues. I mean, we already have a theme of grief. We have a theme of feeling like an outsider and not being accepted, as if you're never going to find your people. At least that's what I think Amelia is going to be dealing with. And obviously we're also having queerness being discussed in a historical time period where it would not have been okay. Sydney is 100% bi. I don't know about Amelia just yet as far as what her sexual orientation is, but I find that really refreshing because when we are seeing bi characters in books, we often don't see men who are bi characters. And what by we, I mean me probably. I'm probably the problem, and I'm just not investigating, finding the right books, but I just find it really refreshing. I'm really enjoying the just like crazy circumstances that these characters are involved in. There has been some deception, as the title suggests, and I'm wondering how it's all going to play out once said deception is revealed into the light, how Amelia and Sydney are going to deal with it, but they're very sweet right now. And so I'm off to keep reading this Regency romance. Thanks so much, Evie, again, for providing it as a recommendation. I feel really good about this. I know I've said it before, but I really do feel good about this one, and I think I'm going to finish it. Cross your fingers for me. Good morning, you have sleepy Leandra. So we're gonna do our best and be coherent all while traffic is going crazy outside because people gotta get to work. I understand. I have finished Cat Sebastian's A Delicate Deception. Yes, our first finished book of the vlog. Congratulations, Evie. Congratulations to me. I'm feeling great. And honestly, it was fun. It was a very easy read. I actually finished it in a matter of like 2 or 3 days. I can't remember exactly when I started it, but I just found it to be really wholesome and lovely, even though it's open door. That is very important to acknowledge because there are multiple scenes where Amelia and Sydney cannot keep their hands off of each other. So just be aware of that if you decide to enter this book a little bit blindly. That's something you should know. And honestly, there was the biggest conflict that was miscommunication or lack of communication, and a lot of times I can take or leave that. It depends on the nature of what should be communicated, and if it ends up being more of a red flag than anything else. I understood why Sydney kept certain information close to his chest as he was getting to know Amelia, and I also understand her frustration. Both of them end up being really frustrated when the truth comes to light and neither one of them openly acknowledges the other in this kind of get-together between herself, Georgiana, her friend and companion, and then we have Sydney with his ex slash good friend Lex. I completely understand where both of them came from, especially because both of them have been burned by society before. They have felt as though they don't belong in society. For Amelia, it's her social anxiety and everything that she was taught by living in the aristocracy, that she should be more of a wallflower. She wears grays. She tries not to interact with people while at these big occasions. Meanwhile, we have Sydney, who has always been part of the working class, and he is uncomfortable with people who understand the social etiquettes, that he ends up having these faux pas. And so the two of them are just really adorable, but they also are very emotional. Like, they end up having outbursts, they say things that they regret to each other. So it's an interesting balance that Cat Sebastian provides us, where we do have humor, we do have wit, we have odd, hilarious conversations that just, you know, make me adore these characters so much. But we also have these very serious discussions of grief as well, of rebuilding one's life and understanding that the perfect life for you might not match society standards. How do we proceed with that? Are we comfortable living that life knowing that those who don't understand us will judge us? So I thought it was really lovely, and I definitely want to try Cat Sebastian again. So thank you, Evie, for that recommendation, and thank you for your other recommendations. I'm gonna have to eventually check them out because you clearly know what you're talking about. As far as my rating, I'm thinking it's more of a 3.5 for me. It was in the 4-star range at the beginning. I was enamored, but then the repetitive issues that these two characters were going through just kind of weighed on me a little bit. So I could see myself having a bit of a residual change. The longer I think about this book, it could be a 3.75 or even a 4-star, but for now, we're setting it at a 3.5, and I'm feeling good. I feel as though with every romance I try, I have a better understanding of where I fit in said genre. Even if I end up DNFing any of these books, dislike any of them, have issues with them, it's not that the book is the problem, it's just that it wasn't for me, and that's what I really love about this process. And so it's time to introduce the third book that I'll be trying, and it's from another subscriber. Mama B has decided to recommend Small Town Big Magic. I remember this book made a huge splash when it first came out, and it's a series actually. I'm pretty sure the author is on book 2 or 3, if I'm remembering correctly. According to Mama B, this is a romance, but it's not in your face, and she thought that I would identify or appreciate the main character named Emerson. So Mama B, we are gonna try this out. It is a chunky romance, and you all can honestly argue against that in the comments. I feel like for romances, probably more than 300 pages feels a bit chunky depending on what is actually happening in the narrative. And this one, at least the audio says it's 15 hours. That's really chunky in my opinion. But I know that, for instance, for like maybe fantasy, sci-fi, it wouldn't be viewed as very chunky. It just kind of depends on the genre. So we're gonna see what happens. I'm imagining it's gonna be a slow burn, or at least a slower slice of life narrative. It is labeled as a fantasy romance, likely because there is witchcraft. I think Emerson is a witch. I'm just judging that based on buzzwords that I've heard in the past. So without further ado, let's dive into this book, and maybe if I get enough reading done today, I can actually give you an update as well. So yeah, wish me luck. So I started the book, Small Town Big Magic by Hazel Beck, which actually is a writing duo. Two friends writing books together. I think that's very sweet. But unfortunately, I have decided to DNF this title. I got 4 chapters in. I was really holding out until we got to the magic being introduced. In the small town in the north of Missouri, we have Emerson. She runs a bookstore. She's very proud of her heritage, both regarding the family, but also regarding her roots in this small town, that she's put so much effort into bolstering, supporting the local community, local businesses, bringing in tourism. She pretty much lives and breathes this very small town. And she also has an enemy who's kind of cartoonish, to be completely honest. I think his name was Skip, which should be your first clue. And it's a string of misunderstandings where everything that negative happens to him is linked to her, and she doesn't mean for it to happen, but he grows ever more angry and antagonistic towards her. And finally, something happens where, to my understanding, he vandalized trees that would have been part of this really lovely project, this night event that was hosted by Emerson. And honestly, how dare you destroy flora and fauna? Like, a habitat. Anyways, I do understand a lot of people's negative views towards Emerson. I did peek. I'm not gonna lie, I ended up peeking at Goodreads just to see what other people were thinking, and it seems like the average star rating for this book is 3 stars, which didn't bother me. Honestly, I have loved books that are on average given 3 stars, so that wasn't a reason for me to be like, oh yeah, let's throw in the towel. But I do understand why people have Emerson rubbing them the wrong way. She is very much into powerful women, asserting herself forward, and it can be very heavy-handed. Like, she is forcing feminism, equality, fighting against the patriarchy down your throat to the point where it's not subtle at all, and I would say it's not very well written. I did appreciate what Emerson stood for, but every other sentence we were either getting her dedication to her town, or we were getting her mentions of being a strong, independent woman and hating if someone else had to help her. So yeah, it's a book that was about 13 hours long. I think I misspoke. I think I said it was 15, but it's just too long for me to dedicate any more time to it. Like I said, at the end of chapter 4, we did get magic introduced, where we finally have Emerson asking questions about why does she have these magical abilities? What was going on in the cemetery that night when Skip suddenly had these crazy creatures around him that were trying to kill her? Jacob, her love interest, and a few others suddenly appear, and you realize that really everyone else is in on it except for Emerson, which could be compelling. It's just that I don't think I care enough to move forward, and so I'd rather quit while I'm behind. So thank you so much, Mama B. I fully understand why you thought this could work for me, especially because I have mentioned that I don't necessarily want the romance to be the focus. I obviously want 2 characters to have a romantic story arc, but I want more to happen in the story. I want there to be more texture, more complexity, because that's how real life is with humans. But alas, this didn't really hit the mark for me, but I really do appreciate it so much, and I'm glad I tried it. Because again, I'm taking mental notes. I think I'm understanding what I do and don't like about books in the romance genre. So anywho, I don't know where I'm going from here, to be completely honest. I decided to provide this update just before, in the next 15-30 minutes, I'm going to head off to the library to start a shift. So I don't have another book on the docket just yet. I think I may have time to quickly double check a title, because I wanted to see if my library where I work has it in stock, because if we have it, I'll just borrow it tonight, maybe read it if we're slow, read a chapter here or there, and then I can give you guys an update tonight or tomorrow. But I don't want to say what the title is in case I don't have access to it. So you'll know as soon as I do if the next book I'm going to be reading is the one I'm thinking of. Until then, I'll let you guys know when I start the next book. Okay. I hope it ends up working out, because right now we are 1 for 3, and those aren't great. That's not a great proportion. Alas, the book was checked out, and it's not going to be checked back in until early April. So what I ended up doing, and I should have done this in the beginning, is check Libby. I checked to see if the ebook or the audiobook was already available, and the audiobook was. So the next book that I've already started is The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. Now, I know she's known for her titles The Flat Share and Road Trip. Apparently, my library where I work, we are big fans of her. Like, we have every title, or at least all 3 titles that I just mentioned on our shelves, which is very fun. And I've heard only good things about O'Leary, specifically The Flat Share. I think that was her most popular novel. And with The No-Show, the reason why this got my radar is thanks to Helen. So Helen was saying how she's had some trouble with romances too. The last romance that she really enjoyed was this book. However, what I love is that after saying that, she said the rest of her friend group didn't like this title. So I'm like, for some reason, that sounds like it's going to be more up my alley. So thank you so much, Helen. Like I said, I've already started it, and I'm nearly 20% into the audiobook. I am fascinated by this narrative structure. I know I said that I'm not a fan of more than one POV. I prefer to be in the POV of one love interest within the coupling. And what's really fun is that Beth O'Leary has given me that. However, she's given me 3 perspectives by 3 women, and all of them are dating the same man. We are going between their POVs. It's all third person, which I also love. You don't realize this at first, although I did check the premise, and it's literally right there. The whole point of this narrative is that they are dating the same man. I just jumped right in, started the audio, and was just like bopping around. And when we switched from Siobhan, because at first Siobhan was the first perspective I got, and I was like, oh, an Irish main character. I'm into it. That's really fun. I really love like the Irish voice. I love Irish humor as well. And so I was just like, okay, let's do this. And then we switched to Miranda, and I was like, is this sapphic? Because then I looked at the cover, and the cover has 3 women and this man running with a, you know, handheld of flowers. How do you say it? With a bouquet of flowers. And I was like, wait a second. And then after Miranda, we got Jane. And then we went back to Miranda. And then the pieces started coming together as I started understanding their love interest's name. So all 3 women, it opens on Valentine's Day, they get stood up for various reasons. They're stood up at different locations. So Siobhan is going to a restaurant. She's expecting him to show up. He doesn't. Miranda has a lunch date with him on Valentine's Day. He doesn't show up. And then Jane has an engagement party, I believe, where she's been lying to everyone in her vicinity that she has a boyfriend, and that's why she can't have people set her up. That's why she isn't interested in anyone else. And so she ends up kind of having a friend. He's supposed to show up and he doesn't. And so all 3 of these women get stood up, and you realize that Joseph in Siobhan's POV is also Carter in Miranda's, because his name is Joseph Carter. And then we realize he's the same person in Jane's perspective, and you're just like, what is this man doing? And I genuinely love all 3 perspectives. You know, it's one of those types of books where you might expect to be like, okay, one of them is rubbing me the wrong way. And so just the tricks of the trade with multiple POVs, you are simply looking forward to the next chapter. But I'm invested in all 3 of these women's lives. And I also have a theory. I'm so early in that I don't know if it would be a spoiler in case I'm right. So what I'm going to say is my prediction, and then I'm not going to address it again. So I'm wondering if this is a situation where all 3 women aren't actually living in the same timeline. I'm not talking like sci-fi alternate history, something crazy like that, like time travel. I'm saying that what we aren't understanding is that Joseph is meeting all 3 women at different points in his life, because he, you know, to be expected, might have multiple partners across his life. And so I'm trying to sort out who he has met first, like which relationship happened first. So that's my prediction. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. It honestly, we don't know Joseph at all. So I think my prediction, I think, is giving him the benefit of the doubt, because he could totally be a scoundrel. I mean, we've seen it happen multiple times in real life and also in fiction. So yeah, because I really don't know him. My investment is purely in the women, and that's how I like it. So actually, this is working out really well. I know I've said it before. I'm a broken record, but dare I say, not only do I think I could finish this, but this could be a 5-star. That's how invested I am already at like 17%. So okay, let me get back to reading. I'm gonna go for a walk. I'll have my earbuds in, and I'm gonna make some progress. It has been less than 24 hours since I last updated you, and that probably means that this isn't a very happy update. When it comes to The No-Show by Beth O'Leary, I finished it! Ha ha ha! Did I trick any of you? I had such a good time with this novel. I literally ended up just finishing it that night. I think I went to bed at like 1 in the morning because I was just playing Sims and waiting until I could reach the end. I was invested. I really enjoyed this. I found the 3 women to be so fascinating, and their connection to this guy who stood them all up on Valentine's Day. It almost acted a little bit as a puzzle. There was a mystery. All of these women had the same question. Why did you stand me up? What's going on? And am I being cheated on? Like, who is the person that he's actually with, and who are the other, like the other women? So I thought it was really interesting. It was designed in a way that I haven't personally seen in any of the romances I've read in the past. So I found it really refreshing. I definitely want to read a book by Beth O'Leary again, and I probably would start with The Flatshare just because that's the most popular one, unless there are people in the comments who really champion The Road Trip, because I have in the past enjoyed a road trip novel. And by saying that, I'm really only thinking of The Road to Roswell, a book I've been meaning to reread in the past 2 months. It's been on my mind, and I still haven't done it. So anyways, that's for a different Leandra for a different day. But I found this to be really interesting. I loved how we took our time with the narrative, and the 3 different perspectives were really refreshing. As I said, I love a third person POV. Romance is known not only for featuring both love interests, if there are only 2, and then also first person, and I'm not a fan of either of those. And I know that that's probably why I always clash with romance, but this demonstrates that there are romances that lean toward my narration preferences, and I was so invested. Now, is this a 5-star? It isn't, and that kind of stinks. I thought about it. I thought it was gonna be, and then there were just some scenes, some scenarios that just didn't fully fit, didn't come to fruition as I wish they had, didn't develop in the way that I thought was more natural, and so it just felt a little bit clunky at times. One thing that I did find specifically odd is that there's this third-party character who I think some people would probably really like because of the personality and the texture that this person adds to the story. But what I didn't like about it is that they highly encouraged one of the people in this story to potentially mentally, emotionally, and physically cheat on someone, and I'm just like, why would we want to like this character? And it was kind of icky. I didn't really like that. So that's one thing that rubbed me the wrong way in this story, and whatever, it is what it is. But I'm thinking I'm gonna give this a 4.25, which is unheard of. A 4.25 from me? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I loved the writing of Beth O'Leary. I think I really vibe with it, and yeah, I'm just gonna try her in the future. So thank you so much, Helen. I am like you. So even though the group that you read this book with didn't vibe with the no-show, Helen, you and me, we both ended up really loving this book. So thank you so much for the recommendation, because it worked out honestly way better than I could have hoped for. And that means that I am 2-2. I've got a 50-50 finish rate, which is actually the same as the last vlog. But what's really great is I'm gonna continue, and my goal is to try at least one more book. Obviously, if I finish it, then we ended up accomplishing the challenge, but I want to give myself time to, if I need to, try a 6th book, and then we may have to call this quits because it's getting out of hand, and there'll have to be a 3rd episode where I try this all over again, but with a different theme. I actually was meant to have this video come out this week, and I just obviously didn't finish the books in time, and I really didn't want to end it in the same way that I had to with the last vlog. Really, what I'm trying to tell you all is that I've got more time to read books, and so I have already started my 5th book for the vlog. It's looking pretty good. It doesn't have super high ratings, which I was surprised by, but I also have a theory as to why. The book that I'm reading is not one that was recommended to you guys, and I'm really sorry about that. It's just that the other recommendations given to me, I either am on hold for, so it's a waiting game, or the problem is I don't have access to them anywhere, which in itself speaks to the issues surrounding accessibility, even with super popular titles. But anyways, the book that I'm reading is called She Doesn't Have a Clue, and I can't remember the author's name. It's like, ends with Moke, Elder Moke. Oh my gosh, I literally just looked at it, and I have it on audio, so there we are. But this is a book I've actually been on hold for months prior to its release, because it just came out this year. I'm pretty sure it came out maybe in January or February, and I've been on hold since December when I saw on Libby that it was coming soon. You're gonna ask, Leandra, why would you put a romance on hold before it even comes out? Well, it's because of the fact that it was described as a mystery romance, and this was way before I even decided to do this romance vlogging project. And I did have the goal in 2025 to investigate more romances, and I thought that could be a really great way to enter the genre. And unfortunately, I couldn't read it, but now is the chance. And I think I only have the title for maybe 10 more days. It's got a really long hold list, so that was also kind of a great reason for me to like read it right now, get the motivation. And so we'll see how quickly I can get through this book. I'm hoping it's another win, because then that means within 5 books I finish 3 books. That would be great. That would be amazing. But you know what? We'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't want to get my hopes up, and so I'll let you guys know how this one goes. It is time for our first update regarding She Doesn't Have a Clue. I'm only a quarter of the way through this novel, so obviously it's very early days, but it just felt like a natural time to pause, reflect, and talk to you all about it. And I can tell you, I am having a great time. It is so cute. I'm really loving the balance between the mystery plot as well as the romance plot. It truly feels like a 50-50 split, which is not something you can often say when we're dealing with genre blends. In fact, I was nervous entering this book because I wasn't sure how the proportions were gonna work. I can tell you right now, this feels like a 50-50 split, and I'm so pleased. I really like our main character, Kate. There may be some bias because I realized that the voice narrator is the same voice narrator for In Every Generation, that Buffy 2.0 series that I absolutely love to death. I was worried that that might actually sway me to being annoyed that I already identify with that voice so well with a different, you know, main character, different story. But Kate is really refreshing. I love that she's an author. She writes mystery stories. She's well known to be writing this kind of like edgy mystery series following a bartender who also solves crimes named Loretta. And it's very gumshoe and super fun, right up my alley. And it being a biblio mystery, being a book within a book, because we do get moments where we flash over to the fictional character Loretta being in Kate's head. And I find that dynamic to be super fun. But at the same time, we have this romantic love interest that she's dealing with, and there's going to be a crime that happens on the island when she attends this wedding. So let me backtrack. The book opens with Kate on her way to a wedding that she's been invited to that she really shouldn't be attending, because the groom is her ex-fiance, but it's really complicated. He's also her editor or agent. And so they've got like this working relationship. And so she's like, I shouldn't go. I really shouldn't go. I also have a deadline, like the book that I have to show said groom isn't ready yet. And so there's just all this stuff going on. However, she ends up getting this second invitation from, I think her name's Rebecca, the matriarch of Kennedy, the bride's family, the woman with all the wealth, the woman who's like owns the home that is on this private island. And Rebecca provides this kind of shady, suspicious request. And so Kate, of course, being curious, decides to go anyway. And when she's on the ferry to said island, she finds that she knows the other person who's also trying to get to the island, and that is Jake, a man that she also knows professionally, because before she was a writer of detective fiction, she was a journalist and would write stories following Jake's adventures. He was a professional surfer. He ended up getting injured, and so then he went off on these expeditions where she would join him and write about his life. So they do have that kind of professional relationship as well. Obviously, she, you know, had secret feelings for him, but she was also dating / engaged to the other guy at the time. So it never worked out for them. They never felt like they could actually mesh their worlds together and fit appropriately as a romantic couple. And so them being reunited in this way obviously kindles some interesting feelings for her. And she's also surprised that he's invited to the wedding, because the last time she checked, her ex-fiance and he didn't get along at all. Like, they actually hated each other. So she doesn't understand why Jake has attended the wedding. And what makes things even messier is when they arrive, Jake says he's her +1. And because she's placed between a rock and a hard place, do I say no he isn't and call him out as a liar, or should I protect him and figure out what's going on? She says yes, that he is her +1. So that means they're in the same room together. So there's kind of this, you know, like same room, one bed situation, which I know is a very popular romance trope. And that leads to the questions of why is Jake here? And there's also some really suspicious activity going on with the other guests. She witnesses an argument. She can tell that there's also animosity between other guests toward either the matriarch, Rebecca, toward the groom, toward the bride. And this obviously is part of the mystery plot that's going on, all while Kate is trying to deal with her feelings for Jake and understand where they could go from here. So I'm liking the balance of it. And at the end of this Friday night, Kate stumbles upon a dead body. So you know that I'm in, honestly, cloud nine. For now, those are my thoughts. I'm feeling really good about this. And it makes me want to try more mystery romances or romance mysteries, depending on how you want to flip the two genres for this blend. So there's some hope here. There's a lot of hope here. I'm really excited, and I'll update you guys as soon as I get further, and hopefully that next update isn't a DNF, because I'm really having a great time so far, and something crazy would have to happen for me to really dislike this. It is late March, and yes, I still have all of my winter decorations up. Every time I record from this angle, I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about these. Anyways, I'm getting distracted. So I am 65% of the way through. She doesn't have a clue, and I'm on the fence. Oh my gosh. You know what's terrible is every time I end up, at least it seems to be a pattern, where I'm getting, you know, a third of the way through this book, loving it, having a great time, feeling like if anything it could be 4-star range. And then as we progress, we get maybe halfway, 2/3 of the way, and that's when the narrative takes a 180 and I'm suddenly not enjoying myself anymore. I don't know what's happening. It must be the narrative structure that is bothering me, because at this point, our couple, we have Kate and we have Jake, they are officially together. At least they've had their first steamy scene. So keep in mind, this does get spicy. There has been one explicit sexual experience so far. There probably will be at least one more later on in the book, I'm predicting. And I don't know. I don't think that they should be together yet. Maybe that's the issue, and that is yet another reason why I think slow burns might be the right path for me, because first and foremost, they have so much they still need to work through. I don't think that they're ready to have gotten physically intimate when they have said things to each other that have hurt one another, have flared certain insecurities. Kate has insecurities, Jake has had his own insecurities, and neither one of them ever really has truly apologized for saying those things, speaking them aloud. Meanwhile, they have just discovered new information that it's someone else's fault that they didn't get together sooner than they could have. This person purposely fractured their professional relationship, which obviously led them both to go separate ways. And that's why it's so awkward when they both came together. And neither one of them really addressed that either. They just decided to get in bed together. And I'm like, guys, maturity. We need to find it. What rock is it hiding under? Because you need to have more discussions to figure out what's going on, because there's far bigger issues. Meanwhile, there's a murderer going on. I mean, like, someone's dead, and that has still taken precedence, which I appreciate. So I still think that this is a true genre blend that's a bit 50-50. So if you love romances and you love mysteries, you really should pick this up. The only thing that I'm also struggling with is the tone, because it's not necessarily a slow burn or not necessarily closed door. Maybe that's the bigger issue that I'm having with it, is that it feels weird that we're in a cozy mystery, because it's very much cozy. I think that the tone, the tropes, the humor in the dialogue, and the quirkiness of our main character, our amateur sleuth, also it just being a biblio mystery, all of those are leaning into the cozy mystery subgenre. Meanwhile, we are dealing with a romance that's open door, and you just don't see that when we're dealing with cozy romances, or even like cozy fantasy, cozy romantasy. So I think that those two coming together, it just feels weird because we don't see it very often, and so that's a bit off-putting for me. I assumed that because as soon as I identified this as a cozy mystery, I thought it was going to be closed-door romance, which I'm totally fine with. I'm fine with open door too. I have no issue with that. It's more so the blending of these two subgenres feels odd, and I could totally see cozy mystery readers tanking the ratings on Goodreads and Storygraph, and that might be why the rating's like a 3.3 or something like that. So I feel as though I can totally understand that, because I found it jarring, and I'm not even a cozy mystery reader, but I read enough of them where that came out of left field, and I was like, oh, this is quite steamy, which again, if that sounds great to you, pick up this book. So I'm of two minds. I'm 65% in, and I was wondering, should I just push through? I only need to finish one more book for this vlog, and then I'm done. I've accomplished the task that I set for myself to finish at least 3 books, but I don't like that terminology. Why am I saying push through? That is suggesting that I'm actually acting against the challenge, because the reason why I find this to be such a refreshing challenge for myself to try romances, you know, until I find some that I don't DNF, is that it always keeps the option to DNF open. No questions asked, let me DNF, and then I can just move on to other reads and not bog myself down, not risk a reading slump, and not force myself to talk about books that I don't really care about. So that's telling me I should just DNF, which it's so frustrating. It really stinks, but also I suddenly feel a weight lifted off my shoulders as soon as I said that aloud. So you know, it makes sense. I'm going to give one more title a chance. After that, I mean, what are we doing here? 6 books in one vlog? That seems nuts. I'm going to add a 7th? No. So we're going to try one more. And all of this is riding on the recommendation from Tuesday. So Tuesday, hope you're not sweating in your boots. Is that a phrase? Anyway, I hope that you're not too stressed out by me announcing that, you know, it's all on your shoulders. But you ended up recommending Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. I've never read anything by this author before. I know, super popular. I probably could name off a few titles if I paused to think of it. That's how popular this author is, even though I've never really read anything by them. And Attachments seems fun. It's also readily available. I was able to borrow it immediately. I don't know how I missed that comment initially. And so we're going to try it out. If I end up DNFing it, it's fine. We'll just have to do this again. And even if I do end up successfully finishing it, I've kind of enjoyed this process. So if you think that by the end of this vlog, whether it's a success or not, you want to see a part 3 and I can kind of keep switching things up, then let me know, because yeah, I'm enjoying it, but I also don't want to like beat you all over the head with my attempts to find romances that work for me. Anyways, this is a long update for me to confirm that I'm DNFing again. And I'm going to try Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. So yeah, wish me luck. Uh-oh, friends. I am about to go on an errand, but I was like, I need to record this update. And it's obviously not good news. I am barely into Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. And Tuesday, I'm so sorry, but you know what it is? We didn't consider that it's not even the romance, even though I do think that some people have made some valid concerns about the way that Rowell designed this romance. It kind of leans cutesy stalker, a little bit weird, kind of this violation of privacy. But anyways, I digress. I'm not far enough into the book to really discuss that type of angle that the narrative is meant to go in, supposedly. But I am just not a mixed media person when it comes to email exchanges. I love mixed media when we are dealing with artwork or illustrations, pictures. I love the idea of scripts. So it could be like a play or a screenwriting scene. But with emails or text messages back and forth, it actually grinds my gears because it just makes me cringe and feels really odd. And I know this is actually interestingly set in 1999, which I didn't expect. And I kind of liked the idea of that vibe as soon as I discovered. And it also makes sense why email would be the choice when it comes to like two friends sending emails back and forth and talking throughout their workday. But I already knew that it probably wouldn't be a book for me. And then I made an error, friends. I went to the review sites to see what other people were saying. And then that's where I ended up getting this discussion of what ends up happening is there is these two women, they are really close friends, they're work friends, and they both end up using their work emails for personal use, which is against work policy, but they do it anyway, and they divulge really honestly sensitive information about each other, about themselves, like conflicts they're having at home, personal crises, everything, just because they're friends. That's what friends do. However, because this is a policy that is very strict among the workforce, that, you know, the company that they work for, there is a security team in the tech department that literally has the job of flagging any personal emails being used during work time on work servers. And so I suppose he's the man romantic lead, he ends up having that job, and he sees this back and forth between the two women, and to my understanding, he just lets it happen and he continues to read said emails and obviously ends up gaining feelings for one of the women from what he learns about her without her knowing that. That is really sketchy, I'm not gonna lie. And I have seen this quite a bit in romances because we are 100% expecting that happily ever payoff, that these two are meant to be together, that is what's in our brains whenever we pick up a romance book, we then proceed to ignore certain red flags. That is my issue when it came to Happy Place, for instance, when I read that. The Elsie Silver series, get out of town with that. That has the most unhealthy relationships that ever existed, and every time the book ended, I would think, I am so sad for this woman, because she is in a very toxic relationship that, anyways, so I digress. But I think that at times we will ignore certain red flags. I did that as well when it came to one of the Brown sister books, the first one, where we did have this idea of like a peeping Tom scenario, some voyeurism, but it was done from the woman's perspective. And I kind of overlooked that until a friend of mine was discussing it and saying that it made her uncomfortable. And I was thinking, you know what? Yeah, if roles were reversed and he was being voyeuristic towards her and objectifying her in that way, in like a safe space where she thinks, or at least he thinks, that she doesn't know he's watching her, that's really sketchy. So why wouldn't I have had that perspective if she was watching him? So I've definitely been that type of person too, where I've read a scene and not really considered the ramifications if this were to be played out in real life. So anyways, this ends up kind of going off on like a complete tangent, but I just don't really like the setup with the emails and don't find myself really interested in it. So I'm going to blame that, because I haven't even gotten to the relationship part. We literally got to his perspective for a hot second when he was starting his job, and then we switched back to the emails between the two women. I also feel as though the discussion surrounding like pregnancy and the potential of having a child that may be disabled, whether it be mentally or physically, it did not sit well with me either. And I don't know if the author was thinking that, oh, well, I'm setting this in 1999, so people will kind of be speaking in terms that aren't fully accurate, but I don't know. I was like, I'm already getting too sensitive and too like nitpicky about everything going on in this book. So Tuesday, I think I got 3 chapters in and I've had to stop. But you and I have connected with so many other books, so because we know each other, you're not just a random person on the internet who I don't know. You know that we have connected and we have liked certain books in the past, and I will gladly take other recommendations from you. I'm sad that I was really hopeful and thinking maybe this could be my vlog where I read 3, great romances for me. That doesn't mean that just because I didn't like them, that doesn't mean they're great for other people. But I'm sad. We're gonna do this again though, and you know what? I still don't regret it, because I came away with 2 really fun romances. A Delicate Deception, that was super fun. I think I ended up sitting at like a 3.75 or a 3.5, and I would totally read more by Cat Sebastian again. And then when it came to The No-Show by Beth O'Leary, I totally want to read more by this author. I just have to decide if it's going to be The Road Trip or The Flat Share or one of her other titles, because I ended up getting it to be like a 4.25 once I kind of sat with it, and I am floored. I'm so excited because, as I've said, it's really hard for me to find a romance where it meets my standards or my desired narrative style for it to be like 4-star range. So yay, this was a success no matter what. And like I said, I'm kind of learning as I go about what romances work for me and what don't. If you're feeling brave and I haven't scared you off, I would love to see recommendations in the comments as far as romances that you think I would thoroughly enjoy. I will say that in the past vlog, the first part of this series, which is now becoming a series unintentionally, I ended up really vibing with like romance with fantasy backgrounds or historical backgrounds. So that could be an area that I should investigate more. Obviously, A Delicate Deception is a historical romance, which I really enjoyed, and it was queer, which of course I enjoyed. And with The No-Show, this seemed a bit more kind of contemporary, leaned slightly literary, and it reminded me of Vari McFarlane, who I've read one book by and I really enjoyed, and then also Katie Birchall. So I think that if I'm going to read a contemporary book, that's the vibe I'm going with, because I ate up The No-Show, and I think it's because it was really complex and we were dealing with various conflicts in addition to the romance at hand. I think it was done in a really unique, interesting way. So yeah, if any of that is sending alarm bells where you're like, ooh, maybe this is for Leandra, please recommend it to me. But like I said, I don't want to scare anyone off or force anyone to give me recommendations if they don't feel comfortable, then me turning around and potentially DNFing it. And if you ended up getting to the end, I would love for you to provide me any type of emoji that is involved with Valentine's Day. So hearts, maybe chocolates, in honor of the no-show, which if you remember, 3 women got stood up on Valentine's Day by a man that, you know, they cared for and wasn't really sure what was going on with him. I'll leave it at that. At this point, my outros are so long-winded that I can't remember if I thanked you for getting to the end. So thank you. Thank you so much for getting to the end. And thank you to my Manor guests. I'm always appreciative of you all. If you ended up missing part 1 and you really do want to see how I felt about the various books I had in there, I'll have it right here. And yeah, stay tuned for part 3. And also give me a suggestion if you have a theme for part 3, because I'm open to suggestions. Okay, everyone, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!